Well, I haven't covered this guy in a little bit, and it's for good reason, to be honest. I find him hard to watch. His rhetoric is just so hateful that it's just not pleasant. There's not much in the way of arguments. It's just very unfiltered hate without any attempts at logic to couch it, so there's not much to engage with other than just to, throw ad hominem attacks at this creator. But we're talking about none other than Ranting for Vengeance. If you don't know who this guy is, he is a small but definitely up-and-coming creator who is definitely one of the more greasy, detestable curs that I've covered on my channel. That's at least what I've said in the past. But I am covering him today because there has been a development. I have been clued in by, I won't name any parties, and I won't be too specific. Well, actually, for certain things I will be specific, but I won't be specific about where I got the info from. But certain individuals gave me some info about Ranting for Vengeance that is, until now, not public. I have been granted permission to say these things, by the way. Ranting for Vengeance, you might have noticed that, I guess let's check out some of his newest content, and then I'll get into it. What looks interesting? Anime is not woke, you moron. One Piece is a ripoff. Okay, so he's anti-One Piece. We'll go in with that. All right. Now, looking at this guy, you might notice he's a little funny looking. That is to say, you're probably assuming he's a grown man, and for a grown man, he looks a little weird, right? As I found out, he is about 15 years old, if not 16. I think I got that right. I don't remember his exact age, but he's a teenager. He is straight up a teenager. Makes me feel a little bad about bullying him so much, but then I found out more. Turns out this guy is way worse than we ever thought. So for starters, I guess you're kind of going to be able to put the clues together on where I got this info from, but when he was in school, or I believe he's like homeschooled or taken out of school right now or something, but apparently in school he has had or does have a reputation for being a violent psychopath, and I do not say this lightly. He's definitely not among the strong, when it comes to like teenagers, right? He's definitely among the weak, but I get the vibe that he's probably the strongest among the weak because he was notable for targeting and bullying non-white and Jewish kids at his school, and it would always seemingly escalate into physical violence, where he would assault them and battery them. On top of this, he was just known to be weird, and he was very much like the stereotypical, like, weird kid incel, but he wants to be like a macho, like, tough guy. And from what I've gathered, apparently his dad is fully supportive of this. Like, his dad's a full-on, like, right-wing Nazi, wants to farm income off of his son's YouTube channel, and encourages him to get into these fights and to assault these people, because, of course, it's like, you're standing up for yourself. Now, I found this out because I spoke to someone close, is what I'll say, to Ranting for Vengeance. And I did not seek this person out. They sucked me out. Wait, hold on, no, they seeked me out. Sorry. I was sucked out, seeked out. So, how do you say, is seeked? Seek doesn't feel right. Suck? I feel like sooked. I was sooked out. This doesn't, I don't know where to go with this, but sought. I was sought, thank you. My brain could not think of the right word here. I was sought out, okay? I was sought out. And I was found. And I was contacted and given this information, and it was quite thoroughly proven to me that this information is accurate. This kid's a psycho, okay? At the same time, though, I don't know, like, what route I want to take when it comes to covering him, right? Because on one hand, 15, 16 years old is pretty young, right? Like, even I look back at my 20-year-old self and think, what a dumb kid. But at the same time, knowing that he has a tendency to engage in literal psychotic violence and actively targets people in the real world, like at first I was under the impression he's, like, probably just a shut-in, kind of pasty-faced loser, doesn't get out much, and the worst he does is say mean things online. But finding out that he's, like, hurt people is wild. Like, that really recontextualizes things for me, like the actual real-life harm to people thing. Because before that, I was willing to offer, a decent amount of sympathy, I guess the best route to go about this with is to talk about how the right and the internet are so effective at grooming young people into Nazism, into radical ideologies. Because at this point, he has a very clear financial and social motivation to continue radicalizing himself further. Anyway, that aside, let's take a look at one of his newest videos, or his newest video. Anime is not woke, you moron. One Piece is a ripoff. Get a look at what this guy's all about.
Two things need to be said that'll probably piss a few people off. Number one is stop trying to make anime and manga woke, gay, and retarded. And number two is that the so-called most political manga and anime of all time, One Piece...
I'm sorry, he's got such a thick accent. Particularly the word retarded is so funny to me in that accent. It is actually just, it's really funny.
Is actually a ripoff. But before we get into it, if you hate these types of people as well, then maybe consider subscribing. And I want to say thanks to the people who've been watching the channel, subscribed, and supporting me over on Patreon since the very start. It just shows you how many comic book, anime, manga fans out there are fed up with this woke shit. Speaking of which, this post has blown up all over Twitter, and it's a massive issue right now that people are talking about. And don't worry, I'll get onto One Piece in a second and how big of a...
I like that implication, by the way. Look how many people are subscribed to me. Clearly, lots of people are fed up with this woke shit. Okay. There are also communities for people online who like to consume literal shit and electrocute their balls. Those communities are definitely bigger than yours is, too. So, like, does that mean they have more... We should all be eating shit and electrocuting our junk now? No. Obviously not. The fact that there is a community or a contingent of people who believe a thing does not lend credence or validity to that thing. Unless there is an actual, real point of authority, valid authority, that group can claim.
Ripoff, it really is. But first, I think we need to cover this guy that runs a massive anime channel on YouTube called...
So yeah, this is... I don't know enough about One Piece or anime to debunk the One Piece is a ripoff thing, but with its popularity, I'm going to assume I don't really have to. So, like, he's probably just... Most of you guys can probably just laugh at him for making that claim alone.
Mother's Basement. I've seen him a good few times, and he just makes the most retarded videos of all time, spreading misinformation about classic manga and anime and just being gay all the time. And wouldn't you know it, he's one of these guys.
Like I said, there's not really much substance to this kid's thing, you know? Like, to directly speak to Ranting for Vengeance right now, because we'll probably watch the video. After finding out how old you are, at first I thought you were an adult. I hated you. I thought you were a bad person. Now I'm like, I'm gonna be real, even if he was like 17, I'd probably still be somewhat sympathetic, because at this age, there are a lot of teenagers who fall into this stuff at this age. I wasn't this bad, but I was bad at his age too, right? You know, and I definitely wouldn't have been upset if someone gave me shit for being that way, but what I hope for him is that he gets better. I hope that at a certain point he starts to realize, because right now I'm guessing he's enjoying what he's doing. I would assume, right? Like, I assume he's enjoying being like the super far right, radicalized, anti-woke type, and he's pretty young, so it makes sense. It's exciting, it's new, he feels like he's part of something. He's getting a lot of positive reinforcement. He's even getting money for it. It makes a lot of sense why he'd be enjoying it right now. But the thing about the right-wing reactionary grift is its decaying nature. It's always a straight shot up, and then a slow fall down. And eventually that fall down is going to reach the point where things are going to start to get really depressing and really sad for someone like this. The Quartering, for instance, is in that era. The Geeks and Gamers people are in that era. No Bullshit went through it. Many of these people, these grifters, they get a big blow up and then they just slowly fall off into irrelevance. And eventually they fall off so hard that they end up sometimes going down some pretty desperate and sad paths in the pursuit of finances, right? And I don't want that to be the future that this guy gets, or this kid gets, you know? I hope maybe one day he starts to realize this is kind of miserable and sucks, you know? Like, it's way more fun to enjoy all the popular media that people are liking right now and to, like, take part in the mass mutual enjoyment of popular stuff. Like, I used to be kind of a shithead contrarian too, you know? I didn't want to... I thought I looked down at everyone for watching Marvel movies once, you know? I was like, fucking schlock. And then eventually, I think it was around 19, maybe. I think it was 18 or 19. I was hanging out with some friends, and they were all just so mutually excited about Infinity War. And they were talking about the story, they were talking about, like, whether or not Vision was gonna die, and how he totally had to die in the movie. It was guaranteed, because how else could Thanos get the Mind Stone? So, like, totally, Vision's a guaranteed death. And they were all, like, tossing around their bets on who's gonna die in Infinity War. I'm like, fuck, man. Like, this is fun. Like, there's clearly, like, something to talk about here. This is not just hollow schlock. Like, people are having conversations, they're excited, they're theorizing, and they're making, like, not bets, literal bets, but, like, they're betting against each other in a way on what they think is gonna happen. There's, like, a value to this, you know? And so, I ended up binging all the Marvel movies, and I found, oh, okay, I enjoyed this. Something that I spent so much time hating without ever seeing, just because I wanted to feel different, just because I looked down on the rest of society for being the lower common denominator and rallying behind what I considered slop. I never even gave it a chance. I made very strong assumptions, and then when I actually gave it a chance, because I realized the reaction it had on people must mean there's more to it, I wanted to join in on their fun. So I gave it a shot, and I realized what I had been missing out on. And I truly wished I'd gotten into it earlier. And this trend repeated itself enough times in my life that I realized very quickly that I was way too closed-minded, that I needed to open my mind way more, I needed to be far less, pessimistic and contrarian about things. And, after that realization, my life started to get so much more fun. I went from being such a negative yum-yucker to being someone who can at least, hey, maybe it's not for me, but if so many people like it, there's probably something about it, you know? And you've probably heard me say that a lot, right? And that realization was big. It wasn't just big because it had a large impact on the way I see the world and the way I think, but it also, it had a massive impact on, my quality of life. I had such a negative impact on my life, being so negative all the time about things, being conservative and right-leaning, and growing out of it, I just ended up being much happier, having a lot more fun.
Is that I love seeing how...
Making a lot more friends. Because being this kind of a person, come on. You think being, publicly, openly, rabidly against One Piece is going to make you a lot of friends in 2025? No, you're literally making it a point to ostracize yourself from the majority of people. He's taking pride in the idea that most people won't like him. And that is a very childish perspective I hope he grows out of one day.
Political something is, but when somebody with a different political opinion likes it, they have a massive problem with it. And that's what's happening with One Piece here, which is something I don't watch or read. I never will. I don't really have time for something that is so shamelessly ripped off from something that is better than it in every way. But the whole fight...
I mean, you just said you haven't seen it. So how could you say for certain that that's the case unless you're just trusting some other person who's claimed that? Wouldn't you want to double check that as a creator? This is a good example of the kind of standard of evidence among right-wing figures. It's now I've never played any of these games, or I've never watched any of these movies or shows, but I've watched a lot of other right-wing figures call them woke, so I'm going to talk about how they're woke, because I trust them. No implication here that he ought to do his own research and verify whether or not claims that it is even a ripoff are warranted. Just the assumption it's a fact. And of course he'll never give it a chance, because he assumes that claim is true on its face. No critical thinking.
Against the government and being a pirate thing of One Piece, these people absolutely love, and they have been loving it. This guy made a video talking about how all of these different protests around the world are using the One Piece flag, which I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but this rebellious punk rock flag that represents standing up against the government and thinking for yourself is actually one big massive ripoff from something that was doing it.
Ranting for vengeance. I don't know. I would assume because a lot of... I'm just going to assume you're young, okay? I'm going to assume it's because you're young, but my brother...
is actually one big massive ripoff.
That is the Jolly Roger flag. The iconic pirate flag. Most commonly associated with the legendary pirate Blackbeard. If you're going to make a pirate show, if you're going to make a pirate anime, you gotta have a skull and crossbones. You gotta have the Jolly Roger. So, already on its face, he sees the Jolly Roger, and I guess he's assuming that this anime came up with it, and the fact that One Piece uses it is a ripoff. I think he's literally just about to claim the fact that both are pirate shows means it's a ripoff.
From something that was doing it since the 70s. And newsflash, there was no gay retards back then hijacking that anime and manga.
Like I said, no substance, no arguments, just hate.
And using it to fit their own politics. So finally, with that out of the way, all you need to know is that this guy runs a massive anime channel where all he does is misunderstand classic anime and manga, overhyped generic shit.
You can't accuse him of misunderstanding it when you've literally never seen it, and just admitted as such and said you never will see it, even as a point of research to debunk it.
Shonen slop, loves being gay, and also loses his mind when an anime has fan service. Which for the 10th time, if you can't...
He calls shonen slop? What does this guy watch as far as anime? Like, what's this guy's, like, preference when it comes to anime? Like, to be fair, a lot of shonens are slop, to be fair. For those who don't know, shonen in anime basically means, like, male protagonist going on a long adventure where they're the main character generally, and they're, like, the center of the story. So you get a lot of those, like, guy gets isekai'd or like, dies and wakes up in another world, and, you know, he's the main character. He's got, like, a harem of women that are fawning over him, and it's just, like, generally, not all of them are like this, but that's kind of the trend of the slop, right? But you could also consider Attack on Titan you could consider that to be, like, Attack on Titan to be one of them, and that's definitely not slop, you know? Like, there's definitely some examples. Berserk, in a way, you could consider it, yeah. You can consider it a shonen. What else? Sorry, I'm a little blank. Yeah, One Punch Man is pretty peak. What am I thinking of that's, oh yeah, Baki is a shonen. And Baki is not really, like, you could never call Baki slop. It goes out of its way to be really out there and wacky and, like, subversive. You know what I mean? Berserk is seinen. Oh, okay, yeah, my bad. Okay, well, there you go. I'm still reading Berserk, okay? I'm still reading it. Baki is absurdist, it can't be slop. Yeah, it's, like, actually made with artistic intent.
Can't handle fan service in anime, then go back to pride parades. And wouldn't you know it, this guy does have his pronouns in his bio. So maybe stick to doing stuff like that, like having men.
Yeah, okay, I should clarify. Shonen does include female protagonists. It's just that's been the trend, is like young teenager or like young 20-something male protagonist is usually the case in shonen. But there are some examples. Apparently Frieren counts, and that stars a female main character. And if I'm not mistaken, the whole point of Dandadan, which is like a really popular new anime, is that it's it's like the formula for a stereotypical shonen, but instead of the main character being a guy, the main character is a girl. And it's like, can you make it work with a female main character? And can you trick boys into thinking it's got a male protagonist and, like, reading it, thinking that, and then getting tricked into reading a shonen that stars a female main character? Problem with Dandadan, though, is I've got some problems with it. I got some problems with it, man. I'm sorry. The parts of Dandadan that were funny and entertaining were neat, but the parts of it that made me go, ooh, filtered me, okay? Like, you call me a pussy, say I got filtered by Dandadan or whatever, but I'm gonna be real. There were several points where they did not need to do blatant upskirt shots of a teenager. They didn't have to do it. Like, they didn't have to show it, is what I should say. Like, they could have had it be a thing in universe for the sake of the comedy of the scene, as weird as the comedy would be, but they didn't have to give us the camera angle view. Oh, the anime stuff? No. Do not try to make excuses for Dandadan, my friend. I have watched a fair amount of anime at this point, okay? And plenty of them have featured teenage characters. Attack on Titan, for instance. At no point was there an upskirt shot in Attack on Titan, alright? That's not anime stuff, okay? It's like, alright, they made an active choice to make the show weird, or the anime, or the manga, or whatever, weird. I'm sorry. I'm gonna criticize it. And it's not just the upskirt shit, okay? Season 1 features 2 attempted rapes on the female main character, who is a 16-year-old girl. The Season 2, I'm just gonna spoil it, the Season 1 finale of the show, which is when I just said, nope, I'm done. I can't stick with this show, is, it ends with a cliffhanger that is the main character about to be raped in a hot spring by, like, 4 fat, like, businessmen. Like, she's about to be raped, and it just cuts to black, and that's the cliffhanger. That level of shamelessness, I was out. I'm sorry. And then in the first episode, it's aliens. Yeah, I was out. I was out with the cliffhanger thing. Like, you could argue the first situation was, like, defensive, or was, like, tackling harsh subject matter, and maybe they didn't handle it great, but it meant well. You could argue that for the first time. But that ending of Season 1, I'm sorry. I've got friends who like the show, and they would get mad at me if they heard me saying this, but I was done at that point. I was done. Yeah. And it's always, like, something where it can be argued that they're trying to do commentary, because, like, in Japan, hot springs and bathhouses, it's a big problem, sexual assaults and rapes, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, you didn't have to make it so sexualized, you didn't have to make it a cliffhanger.
Illnesses, and maybe stay away from anime. So
You didn't have to always make it be the underage character either.
This guy got 93,000 likes on Twitter, posting up some retarded meme about the US government and right-wingers taking the One Piece flag. So let me get this straight. You were loving it when this flag was being used by everybody and their grandmother when they agreed with you. But right now in Mexico, there's something going on. I don't really know too much about it, and I don't really care too much. But people are protesting.
Yeah, you're not going to do any research, not going to look into anything, of course. Very much the mind of a teenager. Thinks he knows everything, he can just immediately have the right opinions, never needs to research anything or look into anything, because he's smart. He's logical. He'd never be illogical. That's dumb people. That's for retards. He's not a retard, of course. You know, because he's him. So he could never be a retard. This is how a teenager thinks, by the way. This is definitely how he thinks. Yeah, I'm going to be completely honest here. This guy's arguments are complete slop. As for the idea that, like, it's hypocritical to be in favor of the One Piece flag used in left-wing protests and against it when used in right-wing protests, pretty clearly because the creator of One Piece is very decidedly left-wing, and the message of One Piece and what that particular variant of the Jolly Roger flag stands for is the exact opposite of what right-wing nationalists stand for. So it's less so that, like, oh, we principally don't agree with it. This is a very common thing among conservatives. They love to just make up things the left stands for to call out hypocrisy. For instance, a lot of conservatives like to pretend like the left stands for being nice. So when someone on the left is mean, that's hypocrisy. Nowhere in the book of leftism does it say be nice. I guess you could say it's about standing up and being nice being nice to minorities, but at the end of the day, like, if you're being an asshole to minorities, part of the whole deal is the left's going to be an asshole to you, and that's not hypocritical in the slightest, because nowhere in the orthodoxy of progressivism does it say you're just supposed to be nice, period. But they like to make up these non-existent beliefs the left holds, they like to strawman the left, and then make up a point of hypocrisy, because if they can't actually attack the ideas, they want to attack the character of those who present those ideas. And one of the easiest ways to do so is to manufacture a point of hypocrisy. I feel bad for this kid, and I hope he grows out of this stuff. I really do, but he is a shitty little psycho at the same time, so, you know, I'm not gonna just let him off easy with the nonsense that he seems to peddle. But hey, if y'all enjoyed this segment, if you found it entertaining, enjoyable, or educational in any way whatsoever, then please consider leaving a like and a comment down below. Subscribe if you want to see more from me, and support me financially if you want to. It really does help a lot. Comment down below. Vengeance is cringe, I guess, if you want to let me know you watched all the way to the end. Anyway, folks, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video.